and Graphisoft just had their Building Together event, which is what they titled the event for basically unveiling their Archicad 27 version, which this is an interesting year because unlike most years with Graphisoft, they'll typically make the announcements in May or June, and then, you know, a month or two later, you get your initial, you get your preliminary version, which kind of sucks because it has all kinds of bugs. And then a few months later, they come out with their, a couple patches, and then it's finally safe to use. So yeah, with that said, this year was a bit different because they did a roadmap presentation back in April where they actually mapped out some of the things that they're working on and some of the timelines that they're trying to do, which I found really interesting because they've never done that before. But today they made the official launch announcement for Archicad 27, and in it they went over the new features. Well, here's some of the new features. And honestly, if you watched the April event, you're probably not going to be too surprised at the features that they brought out. But boy, are these new features going to be nice little enhancements. So let's talk about them. Here we go. First, we've got integrated design options. Now, with the integrated design options, this is going to allow us to, very similar to what Revit has had for years, have a set of design options that exist kind of outside of the model. So traditionally with Archicad, you've had to create different layer sets that allow you to create these different options. And with that, because they're inhabiting the same space, if you're not careful to set the layer cleanup groups for these different layer sets, you'll get these really weird intersections that are invisible, but they create holes in your model visually when you're looking at that particular option. Or you had to save out multiple files, which was, it was a bit of a workaround. I mean, you could definitely do it. I've done it many times, but frankly, it's kind of a pain. So with the new integrated design options, it looks like we finally have the ability to do iterative design with design options that all you have to do is just create, okay, this is another design option, this is another design option, similar to what Revit has had for a few years. But in the case of Revit, that one always kind of sucked. One of the things, I was never really big on asking Graphisoft to bring this feature, mostly just because I know how the Revit one works, and I hate it. I hate the way the Revit design options work. But we'll have to see. I haven't been I'm not a beta tester, so I don't know what the integrated design options will be like. But I did sign up for the technology preview, which, by the way, that's open to the public. If you want to sign up, go to Graphisoft, look for the Archicad 27 link in the pull down on the right side of the screen. And when you get there, you can go ahead and sign up. And that way they'll notice you. I think it's coming out on July 10th. And you'll be able to download the technology preview, which is not the official version, but what they said in the April event was that the technology preview is going to be released in July, and then in late September, they'll release the official version. And what the technology preview will do is it will allow them to kind of work out all the bugs, kind of like in the past, except this is not an official release, so you shouldn't be doing any commercial work on it, but it should allow you to set up your templates and kind of get ready, get comfortable with the software so that when you do start doing actual paid for projects in the new version, you're ready to go day one, hit the road running. So we'll see how that goes. And definitely as soon as version 27 is available for download, I will download it and I will test these features out and tell you first what my thoughts are on it. And also, maybe show you a little bit about how to do them. So the next thing that they one of the things that they also talked about with the design options is that this isn't just like a 3D thing. This carries through. You can actually set design options for your schedules too. So you can actually have the schedule show, for example, square footage differences, or, just whatever. You can have whatever information you need to be pulled out. So that's also a really great thing. Very much a needed function. All right, so now another feature that they announced today is so in version 26, they added the ability for the layers to be grouped into folders and so forth. They're really taking this to the next level with a lot of other parameters, things like surfaces and building materials. And so basically you can create kind of a folder tree organization system for your various components of the BIM model. This honestly is not as important for those of us who are sole practitioners and work mostly on smaller projects, but it will be really helpful for larger firms that are going to be doing a lot of big projects. All right, moving on. Okay, one of the features that they just announced today, I am really excited about, and it is a much higher degree of precision on input. So what I mean by this is they're adding the ability for dynamic dimensions as you're placing things. So it can actually reference things either automatically or manually around. So like, for example, one common problem that I've had with Archicad is when placing doors, typically there's a certain distance from a corner wall that you want the door to be, so that you have the right distance for when the doorknob is out. You want it to be able to hit up against the door stopper on the wall, or whatever door stopper method you're using. But the point is that typically that's 4 to 6 inches, depending on if it's residential or commercial. But you can actually set this up in your settings, and then as you're inserting doors, boom, 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 boom. That's going to be a great time saver. Then this other thing here, notice taking this table, and you can instead of having to create an array, you're doing like just quick input as you're dragging a copy. That's pretty cool. And she, Yasmin, the presenter, she was talking about how you can just do like a 3 and then a / to indicate divided by 3. So instead of having to find the third point, because I used to draw a line and then set the divisions to 3, and then, no, now you just drag it to the point that you want to divide by 3, and then in the distance, you just add the 3 / and then it goes to the third point. That is so cool. That's going to save a lot of time. All right. Now, the next cool feature that they've added is native FBX Import and Export. This is really exciting because one of the common problems that we have in Archicad is the inability to bring in really great looking physical models, especially if you're trying to do higher end renderings, like of furniture pieces. A lot of times those furniture pieces are in FBX format on these various websites that you can either purchase them or download them from. And so this is a great feature. And then the ability to export to FBX. This is going to be really great for virtual and augmented realities, and also for really high-end rendering software that uses that format as an import. So most of the architectural improvements that they mentioned were rather limited. And that's okay. I mean, because most of the software, I think, is in a pretty good shape. I feel like version 26 was really good and solid, and especially the Apple Silicon version, it has been running so smoothly. I am so impressed at how well it functions. Now, I really wish Graphisoft, and if you're listening, please fix this. Why do the model view settings keep forgetting themselves between saves? I mean, each time I reopen a project file, I have to go back through the sheets and manually update viewports to say which model view setting it's to or which renovation status it's at. It's so infuriating that it keeps forgetting this because it's creating errors in drawings if I'm not careful to go through every single page. And if I've got like 200 sheets in a set, which sometimes I do for a larger project, oh my goodness, that takes forever. Please fix that glitch, please. But generally speaking, I love it. It's running really smoothly, works great. The rest of the changes were mostly geared towards engineers. Now, I think this similar kind of thing happened with Revit a bunch of years ago when Autodesk kind of forgot the architects. They started focusing so much on the engineers, trying to get engineers onto Revit. And I think Graphisoft's in the similar situation where, especially on larger projects, because Archicad is so far behind Revit in terms of MEP, it's creating a major problem and an impediment for architects being able to use Archicad on larger projects. It's not that it's not overcome. It's not that it's not something that you can overcome, but it is something that is a pain point. And so, for example, improving the MEP modeler, improving the structural modeling and the structural analytical model export and live connections. That's really cool. I think a couple of my structural engineers, they use Archicad, and I can tell you this is going to be a really happy upgrade for them, that they're going to be able to just go right into Risa or into the other analytical softwares and be able to just, go right ahead. So that is great news. Outside of the improvements for engineers, they also talked a lot about DDS CAD, which is specifically aimed at MEP. I do want to ask my MEP engineers if they're interested in looking at that, but honestly, right now, I've just been using IFC Exchange. Oh, by the way, that's another improvement that they announced with this version, is that they're supporting IFC version 4, which is stepping it up another level in terms of the interoperability, which is really good. Anything that we can do to improve the interoperability. Another feature that I did notice, not mentioned in the video, but I did notice it on the website, compatibility with Revit 2024. Now, here is my pain point with Archicad. They're always behind because obviously Autodesk, they constantly come out every year with their new version. They're currently on Revit 2024, which of course it's the year 2023, so I do not understand how they have Revit 2024 already in 2023. I've never really understood that. It's like they're a car company or something. They're always ahead a year. But with the compatibility, version 26 of Archicad was only compatible up to Revit 2022. Now, one of the things that I really wish that Graphisoft would do is instead of only updating the Revit compatibility the once a year when they come out with the new version, it would be really nice if there could be software patches mid-year as soon as they can get Revit compatibility for the next version. Because, for example, we're 2 years behind right now with Archicad 26 in terms of compatibility. So my engineers, they're on Revit 2024, so I end up having to open up Revit 2024 and then save out an IFC or do something crazy. I can't even open up the any Revit files in Archicad unless they're 2022 or prior. So it would be really nice if the compatibility is right there. Because again, we can open up Revit files in Archicad, great. I mean, it's geometry only, but it is really helpful if I don't have to have a copy of Revit. I mean, I've got a demo copy on my Windows machine just so I can open up files that are beyond that so I can see what's in there. The other thing is the Revit family import feature. So this has been a really great feature of Archicad for the past few versions. The ability to take a Revit family file, an RFA file, and import it as a GDL object into Archicad. This is great because there's a lot of manufacturers out there that have Revit families for their product and they don't have an Archicad version. So it's really helpful when you can just bring that in because it saves you time if you don't have to model up your own object for various components. So in this case, again, Graphisoft, please, as soon as a new version of Revit comes out, please try as hard as you can to get the updated importers as soon as possible. And even if it's mid-year, just bring it in as a patch, as a software patch. I just want to be able to maintain compatibility with my MEP engineers who are on Revit, not because they haven't tried Archicad, it's because they just are a lot more comfortable with Revit. And I don't want to be a punk and tell them that they can't use the software that's best for them. Because if that's really a better software for them, great. They should be able to use it. And that's the whole idea of interoperability. And it's something that, again, in this presentation today, Graphisoft reiterated that they are 100% committed to the freedom of choice for designers to use the software that best fits their needs. And in my case, I love using Archicad because it best fits my needs. And I want my engineers to have that same freedom. I don't want to be one of these punk architects that are on Revit where they force all their engineers onto Revit. That always made me feel really awkward back when I worked at larger firms and we were forcing our engineers to do that. And I always felt so bad for the engineers because I'm like, these guys they don't want to have to use Revit. I mean, it's a terrible product, but, or at least it was at the time for them. It was a really painful process for them. So long story short, Graphisoft, please, please fix that. Get on the ball and make sure that you have somebody assigned, that's their primary job. As soon as a new version of Revit comes out, they're writing those patches to get the new version updated so that the current version of Archicad can work with it. Now, the rest of the features that they talked about were things for BIMX and mostly things about interoperability with BIM Cloud. Now, I want to be clear here. Graphisoft, they're talking about it as though you're going to be able to have your clients looking at their iPad or the computer version of BIMX and be able to do these red lines and send them back to you, and it's going to show up in your Archicad. And I'm going to say, yeah, good try, Graphisoft. You've limited it so that it only works on your software as a service or your BIM Cloud as a service product, which is a very expensive service. Now, there's an appropriate place for it. I've used it before. It is a reasonably good service. Would I pay for it right now? No, because my projects are small enough that I am perfectly fine just having my free BIM Cloud Basic running on a Mac Mini. I don't need anything more fancy than that. And so for me, all these features about BIMX being able to talk with Archicad, that's meaningless to me, Graphisoft. Sorry. You're talking to large firms, basically, is what you're doing. You're talking to large firms that are willing to pay for these subscriptions, and I'm just not. It's just not worth it to me. If I have a large project, maybe I'll reconsider that, but it will only be for that one project because my experience with BIM Cloud as a service was it was overpriced for the speeds that I was getting. And I felt like it was clunky, to be quite honest. I think in concept, it's a really good thing. I really hope I really hope it's improved in the past couple years since I last used it. I'm also really hoping that they're going to get the speeds, the latency to a point where it's really smooth to work with. But for now, I don't recommend it. All right, so that's my recap of Archicad 27, the announcements that were made today at the Building Together digital event with Graphisoft. Hopefully it's been helpful. And with that, I'm gonna bid you au revoir, or until we see each other again. I'm the Colorblind Architect. Peace out.